What if I told you one of the most dangerous creatures your opponent controls could actually become the reason they lose a game? That's exactly what happens when you build around the Sentry, Golden Guardian. On paper, giving your opponent a 5/5 flying, indestructible void token sounds like a huge downside. But with the right support cards, that downside becomes a prison lock, a combat nightmare, and in some games, your cleanest path to victory. The Sentry, Golden Guardian, has flying, vigilance, and indestructible, and when he enters, target opponent creates the Void, a legendary 5/5 black horror villain creature, token with flying, indestructible, and the Void attacks each combat if able. That single line is the key to the entire strategy. The Void is forced into combat over and over again, and because it does not have vigilance, it usually ends combat tapped. Meanwhile, the Sentry stays untapped after attacking, which means he can pressure life totals, block back, and completely control the rhythm of combat. That interaction alone is strong, but with the right deck-building choices, it becomes absurd. The Sentry, Golden Guardian, and the Void create this forced combat setup because the Sentry has flying, vigilance, and indestructible, while the Void attacks each combat if able. Number 1. Crawl Space. Crawl Space is one of the cleanest support pieces for this shell because it restricts how many creatures can attack you. If your opponent has to attack and the Void must attack each combat if able, Crawl Space helps funnel combat into a situation where the Void becomes the obvious or only meaningful attacker. That matters because once the Void attacks, it taps. Then on your turn, the Sentry can attack freely with flying and vigilance while staying ready on defense. And even if the opponent does leave blockers back, the Sentry's indestructible body makes combat heavily favorable for you. Crawl Space amplifies the forced attack pattern created by the Void, while the Sentry, Golden Guardian, remains an indestructible vigilant attacker and blocker. Must-have number 2, Silent Arbiter. This is where things get nasty. Silent Arbiter can completely lock down the game plan in your favor. Because only one creature can attack each combat, and the Void attacks each combat if able, your opponent is pushed into sending only the Void. Then the Void taps. Then the Sentry untaps. Well, actually, he never needed a tap in the first place if he attacked, because vigilance keeps him available. That means you're often the only player consistently getting profitable damage through combat. If your opponent doesn't have a single flying or reach blocker available on defense, the Sentry can become the only creature that matters on the battlefield. And if you can blink the Sentry to give multiple opponents their own Void token, the pressure scales up fast. Silent Arbiter combines with the Sentry, Golden Guardian, and the Void to create a one-attacker combat lock because the Void must attack if able and the Sentry has vigilance. Must-have number 3, Entangler. Entangler turns a Sentry into a true nightmare. The big weakness of combat-based controlled decks is often getting swarmed, but Entangler changes that equation. If the Sentry can block any number of creatures, suddenly your opponent's combat math falls apart. Because the Sentry is indestructible, he can survive brutal-looking attack steps that would kill almost anything else. And thanks to Vigilance, he can still attack on your turn and remain available again. That's the hidden strength of this build. You're not just trying to survive combat, you're trying to make combat unwinnable for your opponent. When that happens, the Void stops being a threat and starts feeling like part of your engine. The Sentry, Golden Guardian, makes Entangler-style combat patterns especially strong, because Vigilance and Indestructible let the Sentry absorb pressure and keep attacking while the Void is forced into combat. What beats this strategy? Of course, this strategy is not unbeatable. The biggest things to watch out for are suppression effects. Anything that stops the Sentry from attacking or blocking. If the Sentry can't participate in combat, the whole engine gets much worse. You also need to respect exile-based removal and ability shutdown effects, because Indestructible does not protect against exile, and losing the Sentry's combat presence can collapse the setup instantly. So, if you're building this deck, don't just load up on the combo pieces. Make sure you also protect your commander or centerpiece threat from being blanked. The Sentry, Golden Guardian, relies on staying active in combat, and Indestructible does not stop non-destruction answers like exile from breaking up the plan. That's what makes the Sentry Golden Guardian so exciting. He doesn't just reward raw power, he rewards weird deck-building genius. Most players see the Void token and think it's a drawback, but with Crawl Space, Silent Arbiter, and Entangler, that drawback becomes a trap your opponents are forced to walk into over and over again. If you like commanders and build-arounds that make people reread the board state 3 times, this might be one of the coolest combat control packages you can put together. So let me ask you, what other cards would you run with the Sentry to make the Void even more of a liability for your opponents? Drop them in the comments, because this deck idea feels like it's only scratching the surface.